He was supposed to be gone from the spotlight. The world thought Johnny Depp had faded into the fog of tabloid madness, courtrooms, and broken Hollywood dreams. But on a rainy Thursday in Seattle, something happened that neither his publicist nor his most loyal fans would have ever expected. Johnny was sitting alone in the back of a near-empty coffee shop, wearing a weathered leather hat and sunglasses despite the dim light. The barista had recognized him but said nothing. Fame had aged like old whiskey on Johnny, bitter, slow-burning, but undeniably potent. Across from him, outside in the downpour, was a small girl with a shaved head and a bright green umbrella. She wasn't older than 10. Her eyes locked on his through the foggy window, not with the look of someone who recognized a movie star, but with pure curiosity. She raised her hand and waved. Johnny blinked. Something twisted in his gut. He stood up, walked outside into the cold rain, and knelt beside her. "You okay out here, kid?" he asked. Her name was Lily. She spoke like a poet and carried herself like someone who lived twice as long as her age. Within 10 minutes, Johnny knew more about her than most strangers knew about him. Terminal illness, her mother worked 2 jobs to keep up with treatments, and her favorite movie was Edward Scissorhands. She hadn't recognized him at first, just his sadness. That night, Johnny called his manager and told him to cancel everything. By the weekend, Johnny had quietly checked into the Children's Hospital in Seattle, posing as a volunteer under an alias. He spent days reading to kids, drawing cartoons, and making balloon swords. But it was Lily he kept returning to, because every time he saw her, he felt something he hadn't in years, the need to be someone real. Doctors gave Lily 2 months, maybe 3. Her liver was failing. The only way to save her would be an experimental treatment not covered by insurance, close to $300,000. Her mother had already started selling furniture. Johnny didn't think twice. The tabloids started spinning again when he sold his chateau in France. Rumors of debt, more lawsuits, another scandal. No one guessed the truth. He'd funneled every cent into setting up the Sparrow Foundation, an anonymous donor fund for kids needing urgent treatment. Lily's file was the first on his desk. But money wasn't enough. The treatment required a donor match, and the clock was ticking. One night, after sitting beside Lily for hours while she slept, Johnny stepped out into the sterile hallway and called the head of the hospital. "I want to be tested." Silence. "Mr. Depp, you're not her family. I want to be tested." 3 days later, the results arrived. A 91% match. Not perfect, but maybe, just maybe enough. The surgery was risky. Johnny's age, the stress, his own long-standing health issues, it could all go sideways. But when the doctor told him the odds, he just nodded. "I've played pirates, gangsters, vampires, even Mad Hatters. Maybe it's time I try being a hero." When Lily woke up after the transplant, Johnny was in the bed beside hers, pale and weak but smiling. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Yeah," he said, wincing through a laugh. "But you were the first person who ever waved at me without knowing who I was. That counts for something." By the end of the year, Lily was cancer-free. And Johnny Depp, well, he didn't go back to Hollywood. He went quiet. No red carpets. No interviews. Just a small office in New Orleans and a foundation that kept growing. People said he disappeared, but they were wrong. He just chose a different stage. The morning sun stretched across the Louisiana bayou like melted gold. Somewhere on the edge of New Orleans, in a modest white building tucked behind an aging jazz bar, Johnny Depp sat at a desk littered with sticky notes, coffee cups, and sketches of children's faces, drawings sent by survivors. Above the door was a hand-painted sign, the Sparrow Foundation. Lily was gone, not gone as in dead, but gone as in free. Her cancer was gone. Her story was now the cornerstone of something much larger, and Johnny, well, Johnny was changing. For the first time in years, he had a mission. He poured millions into the foundation quietly, refusing interviews, red carpets, or press junkets. The public only knew that Johnny Depp had vanished. TMZ ran a headline. "From Captain Jack to Captain Ghost. Where's Depp?" But those who needed help, families crushed by the cost of survival, knew exactly where he was. Johnny started visiting hospitals again, not as an actor, but as a man with sleeves rolled up and a voice that cracked when he read bedtime stories. He would sit with children for hours. They called him Mr. D, and none of them knew what a box office was. But as the foundation grew, so did the scrutiny. By mid-year, rumors surfaced that the Sparrow Foundation was a tax shelter. A Hollywood gossip blog accused him of laundering money through fake charities. Johnny refused to respond. "I don't owe the world an explanation," he told his assistant, Ava, a former nurse he'd met at a cancer wing. "I owe kids their lives." But the real fight hadn't even started. In Phoenix, Arizona, there was a boy named Mateo with a neuroblastoma wrapped around his spine. A treatment existed, new, controversial, experimental, but the FDA hadn't approved it yet for children. The foundation had the funds. Johnny had the will. What they didn't have was permission. Johnny flew out to Phoenix himself, alone, and met with the child's mother, a single Latina woman who worked 3 jobs. Her hands trembled as she poured him tea. "You're the Johnny Depp?" she asked. "I used to be," he said. "Now I'm Mateo's uncle." The next day, Johnny faced the hospital board. He wasn't wearing a suit. He hadn't shaved. He read a letter that Lily had written to him months earlier, the one she gave him after her final checkup. "You're not a movie star, Johnny. You're a real star. Like the kind that doesn't shine for the cameras, but for people who need light." By the end of the reading, a board member was crying. The hospital approved temporary access to the treatment. Mateo began therapy within 24 hours. But the pushback came fast. Pharmaceutical lobbyists called the foundation reckless. Critics claimed he was overstepping. One anonymous source accused him of trying to play God. Even former friends warned him, "This isn't sustainable. You'll burn out." And he almost did. In December, Johnny collapsed on the foundation floor during a Zoom call with a hospital in Michigan. Ava rushed in. The doctors later said it was adrenal fatigue, stress-induced heart palpitations, and chronic insomnia. He stayed in bed for 4 days. Didn't eat. Didn't speak. Just stared at the ceiling fan spinning above him like it was some great cosmic clock counting down. On the 5th day, Ava came in and slapped a yellow envelope on his chest. "What's this?" he asked hoarsely. "It's from Mateo. He's in remission." Johnny wept for the first time in years. No cameras. No applause. Just a man, in a dim room, clutching the drawing of a 7-year-old boy with no more tumors. By spring, the Sparrow Foundation had helped 27 children in 7 states. Johnny stopped counting. It wasn't about numbers. It was about names. Every name he saved, he tattooed in a small notebook he kept in his jacket. But the media storm was catching up. Someone had leaked a list of families the foundation had helped. TMZ showed up at the doorstep of Lily's mom. Paparazzi were now tailing ambulances that Johnny personally escorted. The circus he had escaped was creeping back. So he made a choice. He called Ava, packed 2 bags, and moved the foundation headquarters offshore St. Lucia in the Caribbean. Remote, quiet, untouchable. But before he left the States, he did one last thing. He visited Lily. She was taller now, stronger. Her hair had grown back, longer than she remembered. She ran up to him with tears in her eyes and hugged him so tightly that he could barely breathe. "I'm scared you're going to disappear again," she said. "I'm not disappearing," he smiled. "I'm just building a bigger nest for more sparrows." He gave her a tiny silver ring engraved inside were the words, "Stay free." Then, like always, Johnny Depp walked away, not for fame, not for applause. For war. A war against death, poverty, silence, and time. The waves around St. Lucia whispered like a confession. Atop a hill surrounded by palms and salt wind, stood a white colonial estate with sea-weathered shutters and a wooden plaque at the gate. Sparrow Haven. This was no mansion. It was a hospital, a sanctuary, a research hub, and a refuge, all built in less than 6 months with funds Johnny never expected to see again. He poured everything into it. His last movie check. His vintage guitar collection. Even the diamond ring from Pirates of the Caribbean, auctioned off anonymously under the name Captain No Name. The press never connected it to him. He wanted it that way. The Caribbean sun had been good to him. His skin darkened. His beard grew thick. His voice, once brittle and weary, found its edge again. But this wasn't a man reborn. This was a man preparing for the end. Johnny knew his heart wasn't what it used to be. The transplant he'd undergone to save Lily had triggered long-term complications. His doctors told him quietly, "If you keep going like this, you won't see 60. But Johnny never planned to retire. Inside Sparrow Haven, scientists worked on gene therapies. Surgeons performed free procedures flown in from Haiti, Colombia, even Kansas. Johnny was everywhere, making breakfast for families, sleeping on the couch in room 12, taking out trash when no one was looking. People offered to donate, but he always said, "Keep your money. Just promise to live." Ava warned him it wasn't sustainable. "You're not a machine, Johnny." He just smiled. "No, but I've played one once." Then came the storm. Not wind, not rain, but a legal storm. A U.S.-based pharmaceutical giant, Denzacorp, filed a federal complaint accusing the Sparrow Foundation of unauthorized distribution of test-stage treatments. They claimed Johnny had acquired experimental vials off-grid and administered them without proper oversight. The evidence? An email leaked by a former Sparrow scientist now working for Densicorp. A warrant followed. Johnny was to return to the U.S. for questioning. Ava urged him to hide. You can't go back there. Not now. They'll crucify you. But Johnny, stubborn as he'd always been, walked into the American embassy barefoot with a file of testimonies and said, I'll talk. But only if the kids stay untouched. The press went feral. The headline wrote itself. Death the donor, angel, or outlaw? Some mocked him. Others idolized him. A few called him the Robin Hood of medicine. But Johnny? He just showed up to court with a loose tie and photos of Lily, Mateo, and 23 other kids stapled to his deposition. The trial was brutal. Lawyers painted him as a reckless celebrity with a savior complex. Densicorp's team used projections to show what could have gone wrong. Johnny refused to cry, refused to apologize. I didn't break the law, he told the courtroom. I broke the system. He paused, then added, and I'd do it again. Mid-trial, Lily showed up. Not as a girl anymore, but as a teen. She walked to the witness stand in a school uniform and told the world, I'm alive because a stranger didn't care about red tape. He cared about me. The courtroom fell silent. So did the media. So did Densicorp. In the end, the court ruled in Johnny's favor with conditions. He could continue operating Sparrow Haven, but only under new medical supervision and with oversight from international health officials. Johnny accepted. But that wasn't the only cost. His body was giving up. Back on the island, Ava found him collapsed again, this time on the terrace overlooking the sea. A quiet hum of monitors followed him to the medical bay they had ironically built for others. Johnny's heart was failing. Slowly, silently, doctors offered to fly him to Switzerland. There were treatments, pacemakers, transplants. He refused. I made peace a long time ago, he said, lying beneath a ceiling fan just like in New Orleans. Ava wept. You can't leave. You are this place. He grinned faintly. No. This place is them. Lily. Mateo. All of them. I was just the match. They're the fire. As word spread about his condition, celebrities offered support. Millions poured into the foundation overnight. Letters from former fans, critics, even studio heads arrived daily. But Johnny had no interest in legacy. He asked only one thing of Ava. When I go, don't tell anyone. Not for a week. Let the kids laugh without grief. Let the doctors work without news trucks. And so it was. The night he died, the sea was quiet. The moon hung low, like a curtain drawing closed on a life lived fiercely. No cameras. No fame. Just wind, stars, and the hum of a monitor that slowly faded. The news broke 7 days later. It started with a simple statement from Ava, posted quietly on the Sparrow Foundation's website. Johnny Depp passed peacefully at Sparrow Haven. He asked we wait before telling the world. So we did. For 1 week, his island stayed quiet. For 1 week, the children laughed without shadows. And now, the world can know. He didn't disappear. He transformed. The internet shattered. Twitter trended. #ThankYouJohnny. Fans posted movie stills. Children posted drawings. Parents posted stories. But it was Lily who said it best. He wasn't my hero because he was famous. He was my hero because he stayed. Memorials lit up across the globe. In Paris, they lit candles at the steps of the old opera house. In New Orleans, a jazz band played Dead Man's Chest with tears streaming down their faces. In Los Angeles, the Hollywood sign went dark for 1 hour in silence. But it was the island of St. Lucia that mourned the deepest. Locals held torches on the beach. The children of Sparrow Haven held hands and stood in the surf. Each carried a paper lantern with a name written on it, names of every child Johnny helped. As the sky turned to fire with floating lights, Ava stood before them and read the words Johnny had written weeks before his death. If you find this, it means I'm no longer around to say it in person. Don't be sad. The world didn't lose a pirate. It gained 1,000 sparrows. Every laugh I heard in these halls, every breath you took after someone told you it was impossible, that was my real role. Not Jack. Not Sweeney. Not even Edward. Just Johnny. Just a man who saw a girl in the rain and couldn't walk past. What followed was beyond anyone's expectation. The foundation exploded globally. Celebrities donated in droves. Brad Pitt gave $5 million. DiCaprio donated satellite equipment. Keira Knightley auctioned the Pirates' compass prop. But no one was asked to. Hospitals across 3 continents adopted the Sparrow model, open-source medical aid structures funded entirely by royalties from Johnny's unreleased memoir, The Last Curtain, which he wrote in the early morning hours before dawn, over coffee and Billie Holiday records. It became a global bestseller within days. But beyond the glamour, something quieter happened. A movement. Children who'd survived because of him began speaking out, not in grief, but in resolve. Mateo became a pediatric nurse in Arizona. Lily opened a school for the immunocompromised in Seattle. A young boy named Amar from Mumbai, who once couldn't afford insulin, founded a tech startup that provided free AI diagnosis tools to rural clinics. They called themselves the Sparrows. 10 years later, Ava returned to the island. Sparrow Haven had doubled in size. A statue now stood in the center garden. It wasn't grand. It wasn't dramatic. It was a simple bronze of Johnny kneeling in the rain beside a girl with a green umbrella. No face. Just shape. Just soul. A plaque beneath it read, "Here stood a man who saved lives, not for applause, but because he heard one small voice and decided it mattered." On what would have been Johnny Depp's 80th birthday, the United Nations officially recognized the Sparrow Initiative as the most effective grassroots medical aid program of the 21st century. And Ava? She sat beside that statue every year. Alone. With tea. With silence. Until one year, she brought someone with her. A girl. Lily's daughter. She ran through the garden, laughing, arms wide. And Ava whispered, "He would have loved you, little Sparrow." So, no. Johnny Depp didn't fade away. He didn't vanish. He became something the spotlight could never hold. A whisper in the quiet. A hand in the storm. A fire that never asked to be seen, just felt. And somewhere in the world, whenever a child wakes up in a hospital room with hope, that's Johnny. Still here. Still fighting. Still flying.